Hey everyone! Welcome to part 8 of our Hilda Character Rigging series. In this video, we're diving into how to create a lip sync kit and rig the mouth for smooth animation in Moho. Make sure to watch carefully, because this is a super important step for bringing your character to life. If you're excited, grab your coffee, sit back, and let's get started. First, we need to fix the outline around the head, which currently looks incomplete. To do this, go to the head mask layer and select it. Then, using the Select Shape tool, click on the head shape. Next, open the Style panel and set the stroke width to 30. As you can see, the outline of the head is now complete. Now, switch to the head layer. Using the Add Point tool, make sure that Sharp Corners is turned off and Bezier handles are enabled. Carefully add a few points around the chin and slightly above it on the head shape. Once done, go back to the head mask layer. Using the Add Point tool again, add points at the exact same positions you created on the head shape, matching them precisely. Now, I select the Hilda group. Since no bones are currently selected, I use the Add Bone tool to create pin bones on the chin points. Next, with the Select Bone tool and by holding down the Shift key, I select the 3 chin pin bones. I change their color to green. Then, using the Bone Strength tool, I set the strength of these 3 pin bones to 0. Now, I rename the pin bones. After that, I parent the left and right chin pin bones to the center chin pin bone. Then, I parent the center chin pin bone to the head bone. Now, I switch to the head layer. If you remember, earlier, the entire head shape was bound to the head bone. But now, since I want to bind the chin points to their corresponding pin bones, I first need to unbind the head layer from the head bone. To do this, I use the Select Bone tool to select the head bone. Then with the Bind Layer tool, I click once on the viewport. This will unbind the entire layer from the head bone. I do the same for the head mask layer, since it was also fully bound to the head bone. Now, back on the head layer, I use the Select Bone tool to select the corresponding pin bone for each chin point, and with the Bind Points tool, I bind each chin point to its related pin bone. I repeat the same binding process for the head mask layer. Then, I return to the head layer again. I use the Select Bone tool to select the head bone, and with the Bind Points tool, I select all the remaining head points, except the chin points, and bind them to the head bone. I also do the same for the head mask layer. Perfect. Now, I go back to the Hilda group, move to Frame 1, and use the Transform Bone tool to check the head bone and chin pin bones. Everything is working correctly. Finally, I delete the keyframes on frame 1 and return to frame 0. While staying on the Hilda group, I select the mouth corner pin bone of Hilda using the Select Bone tool. Then, by holding the Shift key and using the Add Bone tool, I create a bone extending from this pin bone towards the right. I change its color to green and name it Mouth-Corner Sharp. Next, I go to the Bone Constraints panel, enable the Angle Constraint option, and set the bone's movement range from -70 to 0 degrees. Using the Bone Strength tool, I set this bone's strength to 0. Now, I select this bone with the Select Bone tool, and while still standing on the Hilda group, I open the Actions panel, click on the new action icon, confirm the pop-up window, and enter the timeline of this Smart Bone action. Then, I move to frame 72. Using the Transform Bone tool, I rotate the bone to its maximum allowed angle. Now, I switch to the mouth cavity layer. With the Select Points tool, and while holding Shift, I select the 2 points at the mouth corners. Then, in the Curvature tool, I click on the peak icon to sharpen the 2 mouth corners. Alright, now, I double-click on Main Line in the Actions panel to exit the Smart Bone timeline. Then, I stand on the Hilda group again, and using the Manipulate Bone tool, I test the Smart Bone. Perfect, it's working correctly. While standing on the Hilda group, and with no bone selected, I use the Add Bone tool, hold down the Shift key, and draw a bone next to Hilda's head like this. I set its color to green, and name it Mouth Open Close. Now, using the Select Bone tool, I select this bone. Then, from the Bone menu, I click on Make Smart Bone Dial. Confirm the pop-up window with the default settings, and automatically enter the timeline of this Smart Bone action. I move to frame 100, and adjust the pin bones and the mouth Smart Bone to close the mouth. Follow the video to move the pin bones correctly. Perfect. Now, I double-click on Main Line in the Actions panel to exit the Smart Bone timeline. Let's check it quickly. Looks good. Alright, now in the Actions panel, I double-click on the second action that was created for this bone to enter its timeline. At frame 100, I adjust the mouth's pin bones to make the mouth open wider than usual. Again, follow the video for the exact movements. Now, I double-click on Main Line in the Actions panel to exit the timeline. Let's test it using the Manipulate Bone tool. Awesome! The mouth opens and closes perfectly. While standing on the Hilda group, and with no bone selected, I use the Add Bone tool to create another bone next to Hilda's head like this. I set its color to green, and name it Mouth-Scale. I also enable Show Label so the bone's name appears below it. Then, from the Bone menu, I click Make Smart Bone Dial. Confirm the pop-up window with the default settings and automatically enter the Smart Bone action timeline. I move to frame 100, and using the Transform Bone tool while holding Shift, I move the mouth corner pin bones closer together to make the mouth smaller. Perfect. Now, I double-click Main Line in the Actions panel to exit the action timeline. Then, in the Actions panel, I double-click on the second action created for this smartphone and enter its timeline. At frame 100, I move the mouth corner pin bones farther apart to make the mouth bigger. I also adjust the pin bones for the teeth and tongue accordingly. Awesome! I double-click Main Line again to exit the action timeline and check it using the Manipulate Bone tool. Looks great. Now, the next smart bone I'm going to create is for smiling and frowning the mouth. Please follow the video carefully to create it yourself. I won't explain this one, but it's similar to the previous smart bones. Take your time and do it precisely. Alright, now let's combine and manipulate these smart bones to test the results. Using the Select Bone tool, I select all 3 smart bones, then with the Reparent Bone tool, I reparent them to the head bone. This way, when I manipulate the head bone, the smart bones move along with it, perfectly synced. Awesome! Now, let's move on and create a lip sync kit for the mouth. I'm going to use this Phoneme reference image as a guide for building the kit. Take a screenshot of this image because we're going to import it into the project and use it as a reference. Now, I stand on the first layer inside the Hilda group. I click on the new layer icon, select image, and then double-click on my reference image to import it into the project. As you can see, the image is masked inside Hilda's face because the Hilda group is set to masking. To fix this, I double-click on the reference image layer to open its layer settings. In the masking section, I check the option Don't mask this layer so it won't be affected by the group mask. Then, under the General tab, I check Don't render this layer so that this image won't appear in the final output. Finally, I click OK to apply the settings. Now, using the Transform Layer tool, I resize the reference image and position it beside the mouth smart bones. I also use the Crop tool to crop out the unnecessary parts of the image. Now, I stand on the Hilda group without any bones selected. Using the Add Bone tool, I create a pin bone on the reference image. I set the color to blue. Using the Bone Strength tool, I set its strength to 0. Next, using the Transform Bone tool, I position this pin bone in the center of the circle on the image. Then, I select the pin bone and, holding Shift, I add another bone from this pin bone going upwards so that the tip of this bone aligns with the green circle on the image. I set the bone strength of this new bone to 0, color it blue, and name it Lip Sync Kit. Now, I go to the Bone Constraints section and check the Angle Constraints box. I set the movement range of this bone from -360 to 0. Next, I select the bone and, while still on the Hilda group, I go to the Actions panel, click on the new action icon, and confirm the pop-up window to enter the timeline for this smart bone. For each phoneme, I've set 12 frames. Starting on frame 1, using the Transform Bone tool, I move this smart bone to the left to set a keyframe at frame 1. Then, I move to frame 12 and position the bone in front of the green circle that corresponds to the sound, creating another keyframe. I continue this process, moving the bone to match each corresponding phoneme for every 12 frames, creating keyframes for each one. The next step is to use the Select Bone tool, hold down Shift, and select all the pin bones related to the mouth. Then, with the Transform Bone tool, while standing on frame 1, click on one of the pin bones. This will set a keyframe for all the selected pin bones at frame 1. Next, move to frame 12 and click again on one of the pin bones. Keep doing this every 12 frames, clicking once at each keyframe until you reach the end of the timeline. Now, We will do the same process for the smart bone that sharpens the corners of the mouth. Just remember, at each frame, you must use the transform bone tool to move the smart bone slightly upward. This way, a keyframe will be created for it at each step. Continue this process all the way to the end. Finally, repeat the same steps for the center pin bone under the chin as well. Now, I want to adjust the mouth shapes for each phoneme. Please follow these steps carefully and patiently. Using the transform bone tool, I will move the pin bones and the mouth smart bone every 12 frames according to each phoneme listed in the lip sync kit. Take your time and be very patient with this part. Finally, using the Select Bone tool, I select all the keyframes on the timeline. Then, I right-click on one of the selected keyframes and choose Step from the menu. This will make the mouth shapes jump directly from one to another, without showing any transition between the frames. The mouth shape will only change exactly on the frame where it is assigned. Now, double-click on the mainline option in the Actions panel to exit the timeline of this smart bone. Finally, I bind the pin bone that I placed in the center of the lip sync kit circle to the reference image of the lip sync kit. This way, I can move it wherever I want. And that's it for today's tutorial. Now you know how to build a complete lip sync kit and mouth rig for your Hilda character using Moho. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next part. Also, feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or just want to say hi. See you in the next video. Happy animating!